So maybe when you saw that sermon titled Doodles, you thought about something like this. And that is when you open your envelope and spread the contents on your pew. Some of you may have ended up with this one. I don't know. This is just representative. I'd like you to meet Hank, my granddog, a golden doodle gifted to Rachel and Nathan by Rachel's twin brother, JP. For the uninitiated, a golden doodle is a science experiment gone wrong, crossing a golden retriever and a standard poodle. Those who haven't heard my stories are probably thinking, what a sweet puppy. Well, all I can say is looks can be deceiving. Someone has said silence is golden. Unless you have a golden doodle, then silence is suspicious. We'll call this one Hank pretending to be a good dog. Hank almost ruined the beginning of my sermon a couple of weeks ago because we thought he was going to die. He consumes socks. He considers anklets and kids' socks the fun snack size. And he can make a hearty meal out of 6 or 8 gold toe fluffies, adult size. And he's had several surgeries in the past. You may have, this is not his best picture. He was displaying his scars from surgery in this one. He has had several surgeries. But as Rachel's due date got closer and closer, Hank's need to eat more stuff increased. One day he raided the diaper pail and he ate, among other things, Elliot's cardboard book. And it just about did him in. 3 surgeries over 4th of July weekend, of course, when what? Surgery is much more expensive, and he's okay, and he's very sorry about it. If you have the one with the puppy eyes, and if you got the very best picture of all. This is his new little brother, Miles, who was born on Monday to Nathan and Rachel and big brother Elliot. And you can see that he is now happy to share his parents with this baby, we think. But enough about Hank. I ran across a song by singer and songwriter Rose Betts from the UK. It was called Doodles, and I was instantly intrigued because of Hank, but it turns out that the Irish have a term, doodles, and it refers to happenings in life, and it means something like this: unfortunate and possibly accidental events you wish you could undo. Some might call receiving a golden doodle as a gift, might be considered a doodle by that definition, unfortunate event you wish you could undo. That's Grandpa's perspective. I don't think his parents feel that way. But let's listen to Rose Betts' song. It's in the style of an Irish bar song. And let's just say that the drinking that she sings about might become a doodle that she'd like to undo the next morning. So I'm not recommending her solution to any of this. And the words are printed on the back of your souvenir picture of Hank because she speaks English and not good old American. And also there's an Irish word in there, craik, which means something like a good time or a good person. Anyway, listen to the song, and I dare you to not tap your toes to this.
So it's one for the night when I broke his heart, one for the joke that I took too far, and it's one for the dent in the rental car. The doodles I'd undo, I've got doodles I'd undo, and doodles I'd unmake when the road is passing you. Oh, there's nothing I won't break. I've got lies I'd swore for truths, and truths that I'd unsay. So when the barman's passing through, there is no knowing what I'll take. 'Cause it's one for the night when I broke his heart, one for the joke that I took too far, and it's one for the dent in the rental car, the doodles I'd undo. And it's one for the times when I let them win, one for the light that I let him dim, and it's one for a kiss that should never have been. The doodles I'd undo, I've got doodles I've undone, and doodles I've undid. I've got days I can't outrun, and days I can't unlive. I've flown too close to the sun and too close to the wind. So tell the barman, leave it open, I'm gonna need a couple more drinks. 'Cause it's one for the night when I broke his heart, one for the joke that I took too far, and it's one for the dent in the rental car, the doodles I'd undo. And it's one for the times when I let them win, one for the light that I let him dim, and it's one for a kiss that should never have been. The doodles I'd undo. So it's one for the chaos and one for the crack, one for the kiss, I should not have done that, and it's one for the lover that I'll never get back. The doodles I'd undo.
There was one more note there. All right, so someone interviewed Rose about the origins of this song, and here's what she said. I found a note on my phone that I'd forgotten making, which was just this long list of regrets. And it just felt funny how being alive means making mistakes, which then you have to live with, but also are the only things that help you develop. So it seemed worth a song. Songs are always a kind of therapy to me, a way to get something off my shoulders. And Doodles is my attempt to lighten the load of regrets. I'm guessing that you probably don't keep a list on your phone, but I suspect most of us have a list somewhere, maybe in the deep recesses of our brains or our hearts. The doodles I'd undo. I have a friend who tells me that he decided a while back to live without regrets. And the last time I asked, he said he had been somewhat successful at this endeavor. It's a worthy goal. I'm all for minimizing them, but I'm guessing all my days I will continue to have some regrets. Maybe that's just the way I'm put together. I do think we have resources in our life of faith that may help us deal with the Doodles. And maybe I should start by confessing some of my own doodles. This is not fun saying them out loud and saying it for others to hear. When Kay asked me what the sermon was about, I said, it's about regrets. And she had the nerve to say, well, what are some of your regrets? And I said, I'll get back to you on that. Which led her to show up later and say, well, if you won't tell me, maybe I'm one of your regrets. And I can assure you that marrying Kay was the most undoodle thing I've ever done. Retirement has given me opportunity to reflect on my ministry. Sometimes in the midst of ministry, it feels like there is so little time to reflect on what you're actually doing. And I think that's true about a lot of things. A job, marriage, parenting. One of the things I've realized about myself, something that did not serve me well as I sought to serve God, is that I tended to shy away from angry people. Maybe that was my introversion kicking in. Maybe that's just human. Maybe I'm chicken. I don't have much perspective on that. But I have realized that I missed many opportunities to make a difference because I didn't find constructive ways to engage with people who were angry, upset. And here's the deeper truth: hurting. Because I've come to see now that angry people are many times wounded people. And who is church for if it's not for the wounded? That's a doodle I'd undo, ignoring the angry and hurty ones. I see that now. And maybe that's a component of a doodle if you had known then what you realize now. In the passage from Philippians that we read, we hear Paul struggling with the priorities in his life and how he can look back and see that what used to be important to him isn't important anymore. He calls all those things loss, trash, rubbish, inferior, insignificant, petty, dog do. And here's what changed his priorities. Those things have been supplanted by what really matters. Compared to what Christ means to him, he can't really be bothered anymore by those other things, things that used to take up real estate in his head, that distract him from Christ's call in his life. Paul also mentions a word that we don't much like: suffering. I think the Catholics may have a little something on us Protestants here. The spiritual benefits of suffering. Now, I'm in tricky territory here, but here again what he says. I gave up all that inferior stuff so that I could know Christ personally, experience his resurrection power, be a partner in his suffering, and go all the way with him to death itself. If there was any way to get in on the resurrection of the dead, I wanted to do it. I'm not saying that we have to seek out suffering, some sort of religious masochism, self-flagellation and hair shirts, that sort of medieval piety. We don't have to go looking for suffering. Suffering finds us. It's called being human. But do you see how Paul transforms his suffering? There is no room for pity parties. So I could know Christ personally, experience his resurrection power, be a partner in his suffering. Instead of a victim, he considers himself a partner with Christ. Do you ever find yourself asking, is there something I could have done in this painful or messy situation that might have made this all go a different way? Oh, the doodles I'd undo, the doodles I'd unmake. Rose Betts says that the most important and poignant and tragic part of her song is where she sings, "One for the time that I let them win, one for the light that I let them dim." That's not as easily fixed as a dent in the rental car. To have our light dimmed is a sad and terrible thing. And it happens. We are made for one another. The whole foundation of the created order hinges on this decree. It is not good for the human to be alone. Sometimes our light is dimmed in our experience of other people. I have said this about my kids, and maybe in a few other instances too. Wherever two or more are gathered together, there's bound to be trouble. And now Jesus' promise was a little different. Where two or more are gathered in my name, I am in the midst of them. Somewhere in my ministry, I began adding a note to my onboarding speech for someone that I had just hired. I would say this, which down through the years got me more than one shocked look. Don't let working for the church ruin your relationship with God. That's a little harsh, Ken, don't you think? I'd seen it happen too many times with paid staff and with dedicated volunteers. Someone would take a job at the church thinking that it would all be sweetness and light, and it was, until it wasn't. Here's the problem. We keep letting humans in. It reminds me of what Groucho Marx said, "I refuse to be a member of any club that would have me as a member." Part of the problem with church is that it's made up of people like me and like you. Kind of a scraggly bunch. So what's a human to do? I think it starts with forgiveness. And I know no better place to start than with forgiving ourselves. In the Doodles song, Rose lines up all of her hurts and offenses in no particular order. The joke that went too far, a broken heart, a kiss, a dent in the rental car. She's got lies she'd swap for truths, and truths that she'd like to unsay. And we've got the things that we carry around. And the good news is that we have assurance after assurance after assurance that we have the gift of amazing grace. As we sang this morning, we have God's grace, and it is amazing. We are forgiven, and that means we can forgive ourselves. Jesus is really something. You can say you heard it here first. Jesus is really something. He said all of this amazing stuff, and sometimes we act like we've never heard it. In Matthew 5, he says, and again I'm using the Message translation, you're familiar with the old written law, love your friend, and its unwritten companion, hate your enemy? I'm challenging that. I'm telling you to love your enemies. Let them bring out the best in you, not the worst. When someone gives you a hard time, respond with the supple moves of prayer. For then you are working out of your true selves, your God-created selves. This is what God does. He gives his best. The sun to warm and the rain to nourish to everyone regardless. The good and the bad, the nice and the nasty. If all you do is love the lovable, you expect a bonus? Anybody can do that. If you simply say hello to those who greet you, do you expect some award? Any run-of-the-mill sinner does that. Live generously and graciously toward others, the way God lives toward you. One of my total flops in children's sermons, and I used to enjoy children's sermons, but they were fraught with danger, like flying on a trapeze without a net. I learned early on not to call on children who want to tell you something so bad. One little girl in Luling was trying to tell me something, and I was young and foolish enough to say, "Yes, Aaron?" My mommy was standing in line at K&B, and she dropped a bottle of wine on my head, and it hurt. And her grandparents, who were sitting on the second row, just kind of got underneath the pew. Anyway, back to my flop. One week, I was trying to find a way to talk about God sending the sun and the rain on the just and the unjust. And I said something like, imagine there's this street with houses, and all sorts of people live in these houses. There's a nice grandmother in one, and a grumpy old man in one, and someone who feeds the birds and the squirrels, and someone who's mean to her dog. Now, when it rains, and we all need rain, right? Rain makes things grow, and so does God say, okay, I'm going to send the rain on the grandmother and on the nice man who feeds the animals, but no rain for the mean and grumpy people? So you've got one house where rain is falling, and the next one there's no, and then rain down here, but nothing down here. Is that the way things work? And all the children in one accord said, "Yes, Reverend Ken, yes." And I don't know that I ever convinced them that that is not the way it works. Because it makes all kinds of sense. But that's not what Jesus said. And he used an example of widespread, indiscriminate generosity to tell us about God's love. Live generously and graciously toward others, the way God lives toward you. Jesus is really something. Which brings us to forgiveness for others. I have caught myself more than once. Have you done this? Caught myself praying something that sounds a lot like, "Dear God, please give them what they have coming to them." And then I tack on a quick footnote, "But grace for me, if you don't mind." I'm commending a hard thing to you, but it's the only thing I know to do. And that is to commend forgiveness. For all who have brought you pain, disappointed you, added doodles to your load in life. Forgive as you have been forgiven. Remember what Paul discovered when he considered what used to consume his life. Can't we get consumed sometime with all the wrong things? Compared to that, what Christ means to him now, he can't really be bothered with those other things that used to distract him from Christ's call in his life. He said it well. I'm not saying that I have all this together, that I have it made, but I'm well on my way, reaching out for Christ, who has so wondrously reached out for me. Friends, don't get me wrong. By no means do I count myself an expert in all of this. But I've got my eye on the goal where God is beckoning us onward to Jesus. I'm off and running, and I'm not turning back. Amen.